with MacDon headers, it's equally important to maintain and keep our single point header connection plates clean. I'm using electrical contact cleaner. It's not as severe on the rubber seals and the plastic of the electrical connectors. Also rinsing off the combine side to prevent any dirt entry that we can. Also on the MacDon header with the telescoping drive shafts, we do have a grease zerk to maintain in the middle here to prevent dry telescoping drive shafts. For clarity of the feed auger pivot point and lubrication, we've unhooked it from the combine, and as you can see, we have a right hand and a left hand lubrication point for the feed auger pivot that I recommend greasing daily due to the amount of material movement the feed auger moves up and down, and that's an active pivot point. Daily maintenance of the FD70 and FD75 MacDon headers. We have an onboard oil level to maintain on the MacDon header. It uses 1540 motor oil, as the decal will state here. And as you can see, our lower sight glass has oil level in it, and the upper sight glass just has some marginally in the bottom. And that's adequate to keep it full with 1540 motor oil. Here's our filler cap and breather. If we happen to be tilted down, cutting lower on the left for an extended period of time, we might see some oil coming out of our breather cap. Our telescoping drive shaft on a MacDon header transmits power through a feed drive auger chain and also a gear within this gear case that drives the pumps. Maintaining oil level here with an 80-90 weight oil is recommended. During our winter inspection program, we will ask and maintain this chain tension for you with the chain inside here is on a spring-loaded mechanism, and I'd encourage you to have it done during your winter service inspection. Also, during the winter and service inspection, we're going to encourage you to replace the oil filter that is underneath this shield that maintains clean oil for the drives of the knife drive and Draper drive system. Then there is the counter shaft that comes across, and it drives the feed auger drive chain here in the center. This chain is a dry chain and needs to be kept lubricated and adjusted or looked at for tension often. If it's not maintained on its tension, there is a floating drive sprocket here in the back that is on a spline shaft, and it will come off the end of the shaft, or the feed auger drive chain will bind up and create a harvest delay. Maintaining side Draper belt tension on a MacDon, as you can see, is as simple as this little white gauge through this slot, and there's a really good explanation on a decal just to the right of it, and this needs to be maintained on the left and right side Draper belts. This is your belt tension bolt, and I'd advise you not to work with these bolts. These bolts are for maintaining the tracking of the side Draper belts, and I'd ask that you not mess with those unless you have a side tracking problem. During our daily service or anytime we want to get under the header, please remember to put the feeder house safety stop down. On the MacDon Draper center feed belt, we have a maintained tension for the center Draper belt with these bolts. There's one on the left and one on the right, and we need to keep this square tubing flush with the end of this bracket. In doing so, we'll use this bolt to push that spring back down in there farther, which tensions our belt. Also, while we're in this area, we can talk about the front roller bearings and the lubrication maintenance of that. If the center belt would get dirt or mud or debris stuck under it, of releasing it with this rod back here, and this door will swing then off this hinge down so we can clean out the debris that's stuck under the center feed belt. I'd want to take and stop and just double check that the day before we didn't actually maybe break a shear casting that holds the main header frame to the center header frame. Just take a quick look at this. This has got a hook on it and it's simply replaced with this bolt. We have one on the left and on the right sides. With the center Draper belts, we have the front roller bearing lubrication point on the right side, and we have one on the right side rear bearing. The left side rear bearing is maintained by the Draper drive motor itself. this lubrication, it's important that we do not over grease it and just give it 1 or 2 pumps of grease a day. If we were to over grease it with more than a couple pumps, we're probably going to take and push this knife head down, causing high wear and probably some increased heat on our first knife guards and knife section. So just maintaining a couple shots of grease per day will maintain the knife head. During sickle replacement, if I needed to pull the sickle, I'd simply loosen this bolt right here. Then I'd come up here and take this grease fitting out, and with removing that grease fitting, there's a pin that pulls out of the center of that knife head, and it pulls up so this sickle can then slide past the knife drive arm. During our daily maintenance, if I was to notice that I had grease oozing out around here, I'd probably want to check my knife head seals and replace them. We have the operator's manual storage box with parts and service manuals in there. And also on this left side of the header and the right hand side of the header, if you have a dual knife drive, we have the knife drive gear case with an oil level to maintain. That breather's actually got a dipstick on it. And we have left hand and right hand knife drives with 80-90 weight oil in them. The knife drive system is run by a belt. And as you can see, belt tension is critical, and we run a pretty tight belt tension, which is adjusted by the upper motor up here. Daily lubrication fittings on the MacDon reel would be the left hand, the right hand end, and in the center of the reel we have lubrication fittings to maintain that are actually greasing some bearings and do not require quite as much grease as a bushing style reel drive chain tension that drives off the hydraulic motor that we need to look at least seasonally. If not, depending on how long our harvest season is, we may look at it a couple times during the harvest season. And also, it's hard to show, but from underneath here there's a hole that greases a U-joint cap and the U-joints for the reel drive. To maintain knife drive wearability and life of the knife drive assembly on a MacDon, we still want to maintain our 20 thousandths or business card thickness, and to maintain and adjust that is simple as adjusting this bolt in the back to tip the hole down towards the sickle section or to give it a little more gap.